Oh, landmines and jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess. And if you believe it's not butter, so help me God. But we did a live stream, give or take a day ago. We went in on the Duratech Tools liner lock knife. Now let's take a look at what we got here. So first things first, and most importantly, it's tip up, which is the Lord's carry. You've got this texture G10 here that I really like. This looks great. It feels great. You know, they did a really good thing here. You got thumb studs, you got a flipper tab, so let's flick the bean. And you got a 3 1/4 inch blade here. It's a nice drop point. It's an 8CR13 steel. And so what had happened was, all right, I did Super Budget Showdown Season 1. There is a playlist on that if you want to go check it out. I'd love it if you did. There was a lot of work that went into that, and it was interesting. But what took first place is the Duratech Axis Lock, which is pretty much the exact same thing. However, it's an Axis Lock instead of a liner lock. So there's no flipper tab, but you can centrifugally open it, which I am so in love with. And this thing did fantastic. It was a great carry. It did all the things really well. And so this was $15, which is how it made it into that Super Budget Showdown. It was all knives that were $15 or less, and they all got put head to head. But when I did that, this also showed up. I think someone in the comments may have pointed out that this thing existed, and it was $9.99 at the time. Now, in December of last year, I got this for $8. For $8, that is one hell of a deal. So, you know, we had gone and looked at this a few times. You know, I did my week of carry with it. There were some other guys that saw it, decided they were going to get one, and they love it too. So I threw it in the box for the live streams, and the 20-sided die picked this out of the 4 knives. Now, the other knives we had were steels we hadn't run before, but I threw this in here to check out the ergonomics and how it went and how it do. And we ran into a problem. So after about an hour, the cuts on this started getting really nasty, really ragged, and the cardboard was wadding up and tearing instead of cutting. So, and I mean, it was less than an hour before that started happening, so I busted out the Work Sharp Precision Adjust, hashtag not sponsored, and we reprofiled it down to 18 degrees, and I discovered that the angle on this thing was super obtuse. Like, it must have been like the better part of 24 degrees with the amount of material I had to shave off before the black magic marker went away on the edge. Like, I had to grind pretty deep to get in there. And I think you can see the edge here, if it'll show up, is a nice, wide, even, clean bevel. Now, pretty much the same edge was on this, and it's a much smaller bevel. It is a much more obtuse angle, and so that really bit it in the ass. It bit it in the ass quickly, but once we adjusted it and got the new edge profile on there, we went for another 2 hours. And over that 2 hours, we went in with much more insane cardboard than we normally do. So normally I'll do a whole bunch of like 32-pound edge crush test cardboard that cuts, and it cuts fairly easily, you know, for cardboard. And then we'll throw in some 44-pound edge crush test cardboard, you know, just kind of mix it in there. So we got some clean cuts, we got some difficult cuts. And there's one box that we had where every time I cut, I have to push down so hard that the office chair I'm sitting in rocks back and my feet come off the floor. And we had that, and that's like 50 some odd pounds, and it's double layered. However, I found a box that's 71-pound edge crush test, and it's double layer, and that stuff, it pushed through a lot of that 44-pound stuff, and after 2 hours, the edge was just barely starting to wear. Now, 8CR13 on factory edges, you see some wear starting to get significant, but at 2.5 hours, the edge completely craps out. So that edge angle did wonderful, and the heat treatment on this is solid. So, you know, we sharpened her back up, and let's take a look at how she do now. What in the name of God? It did not like taking that cut. There we go. You know, and that's what we were able to achieve with the strops at the end of the stream. God, these cuts always suck under the camera. There we are. So it's cutting nice and clean. It got shaving sharp off of the strops. We haven't had that happen. We also haven't gone in with this edge at 18 degrees, but the wear was so insignificant that I could shave it, or I could sharpen it back to shaving just off the strops. So, the heat treatment on the steel is good, but you're probably going to want to be able to sharpen it. I mean, the edge, when I carried it, did just fine. It took care of me. It cut the things I needed to cut. It did really well. It's just going into Cardboard Slayer, it kind of showed the weak spot of the edge being that obtuse. So otherwise, the ergos on this were above average. They weren't the best that we've had, but they were above average. So I got chewed up really bad right here. The gap in the back of these right here and how I'm holding this to do all those push cuts, this gets in here and just beats it to death. It starts hurting pretty quickly and hurts for the rest of the night, but that's endemic to just about all the knives we've done. That is a normal problem. The ergos, the rest of the way through, though, they were quite good. It was comfortable enough the whole time. Again, not the most comfortable thing we've used, but comfortable enough. And, I didn't finish the live stream with, like, numb spots here, nothing was numb here. Like, those parts of my hand weren't all chewed up, so it did good in that department. And I would drop a link for Amazon for this. However, it's currently unavailable. I don't know if it's been discontinued or they're going to come back in stock eventually. You know as much as I do about that. That being said, the liner lock edition for $15, or the axis lock, not liner lock. I'm very tired. It's been a long day. But the axis lock version is still available for $15. I will drop a link to that. And I really like this axis lock version a lot. Like, I like both of them quite a bit. They're both fantastic knives. Like, they're really fantastic. The only caveat to that is you may want to give it a good sharpening and give it a new edge when you get it. Now, again, carrying this thing and on the factory edge, it did just fine. It's still a decent edge. It still cuts. It still works. It does all the things. But it's not that crazy, hair popping, shaving easily sharp that you can get off your own equipment. And for $8, that's a hell of a value. That kind of beats out the GK23 from Harbor Freight. If that factory edge was a bit tighter, I would say it annihilates this thing, but this thing came with a better factory edge out of the box. And the funny thing is, we sharpened this one up to that 18-degree angle to see how long it would last on Cardboard Slayer. And this is going in the rotation, because if we start Cardboard Slayer with this edge, we can see just how much edge retention we got out of doing that. Because if you remember, the Walmart Ozark Trail axis lock knife that we did that with, this 18-degree angle tripled the edge retention on it. So I do want to see what that edge retention do on 8CR13. Like, this was a good indicator. It's going to do pretty good. But I want to see if this is kind of like the 9CR18 where the steel beat me and I physically could not push it to the point of failure before I was just too exhausted to keep going. But that's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to trying it out. Yeah, the knife did pretty good once I got a new edge on it, but before it got that new edge, oh my god, we were worried about the heat treatment being bad because it wore out so damn fast. So that was my experience with this thing during Cardboard Slayer, and as you know, I like to share the results afterwards, and, this was a bit of an interesting case. We kind of saw what bad edge geometry can do, and again, it wasn't terrible edge geometry, it's just that angle was too obtuse for the kind of cutting we were doing. It treated me well carrying it at work, it treated me well, dicing up some cardboard, it treated me well cutting plastic off of pallets. And I'm sure in a harder use environment, that obtuse angle would have worked out to be an advantage because it would have been harder to tear up. So, I still think it's a great knife. I love this thing. I love what they made there. Like, they did a very good thing with this. So, yeah, that was my experience. All that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, you guys are still coming in. It's awesome. I appreciate it so much. You guys are the reason that this lasted longer than 6 months. And, I'm looking forward to more people coming in and getting something out of this. It's very, very humbling, and I'm grateful. Comments, I love some feedback. If you got one of these, let me know how it did for you, and let me know how that edge treated you. And, yeah, all that being said, y'all have a nice day.